to Europe in 1976, leaving on January 8th. I arrived in Luxembourg. I decided that I'd go to Italy first to visit my Italian relatives in Rome. And I'd paid for my train ride from Luxembourg down to Rome out of my own pocket. I had a Eurail pass. It was good for 2 months. It didn't start until I started using it. Once I started using it, the 2 months would start. So I decided I'd go to Italy first, visit my relatives, for as long as that might work out to be. And then I'll start using my Eurail pass. Well, the morning I went to the train station in Luxembourg, I had a ticket to go to Italy. First thing I noticed was there were young men standing around having breakfast. This was like at 6 a.m. And what would you do? They were drinking a bottle of beer at 6 a.m. They were standing. And they were, like dressed for work. Like in coat and tie kind of thing, I was saying. Couldn't believe what I was looking at. Solitary men. They didn't look homeless or anything. And there they were. Well, that was one of my first startling insights into life in Europe. That you might have a bottle of beer for breakfast, and that's not something I did or would do. But that's something I did notice as my roughly 2.5 month solo backpacking tour through Europe began. About 50 years ago. Footnote. Since I ended up having such a screwy life, it made no sense at all up to the present minute. I'm saying to myself, that morning I started my trip from Luxembourg to Rome. What if it was not 6 o'clock in the morning for those men who were standing around in solitary poses here and there at a table that you would stand by, there weren't any chairs, drinking a beer like that, because it wasn't 6 a.m. in their reality. Let's say it was 6 p.m. or some other time. And what I was seeing was a mixture of realities. I was in an alternate reality, the reality those beer drinkers were in. Who would be having a bottle of beer at 6 a.m. that way? Coat and tie. Who would be doing that? I mean, I don't think that would even be illegal in that country. And these guys were not drunk. So now that I've had this absolutely screwy life, this made no sense. For example, I went down to visit my grandfather's younger brother. Okay. Francesco Miele, okay? Now, as it turns out, my grandfather was probably not my grandfather. He was my biological father, so Francesco was my real uncle, and I wanted to stay in Italy at that time and continue to live in Italy. I did not want to go back to the United States. I was 22 years old, and I wanted to stay in Europe. But, I didn't even ask Zio Francesco how I might do that, or any of the other relatives I met. I didn't ask him. I don't know why, it didn't occur to me. And then, the day I did try to ask, I went to the American Embassy. Very difficult to get there. I didn't know how to get there, if you're taking public transportation, buses, and so on. I eventually arrived, and it was closed. It was a Sunday. I had gone on the wrong day. And there was nobody there to answer my questions on how I could stay in Europe. They would have told me, are you related to anybody in Italy? Well, we have a law where if you're descended from Italians, you can claim citizenship. And there I was with my grandfather's younger brother and the rest of the family, all of whom could have vouched for me, and I could have got that citizenship in like a week probably. But the day I went, the embassy was closed. And of course, at that time, I didn't know about my grandfather being my biological father, but it wouldn't have mattered. My legal father was his son, and according to the law, I fully qualified for Italian citizenship. And yet, I didn't get it like 40 years later when I applied and the rules were still in force. And I went and applied, fully qualified, I had all the documents, and I didn't get it because they changed the law. In the midst of me applying for the citizenship I could have easily gotten in 1976. So this is the screwy life I'm in. That's why I say the life makes no sense. So now when I look back at that moment when I was in that Luxembourg train station, I say to myself, who would be drinking a beer like that, dressed the way these guys were, looking like they were, at that time of the morning? It could not have been 6 a.m. in their reality. That's what I'm saying.